Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're the show that digs into the complex stuff so you get the essentials. Today we're tackling Hedera, HBAR. It's a bit different, isn't it? Not really playing the same game as Bitcoin or Solana.
Not at all. It's really operating in a different universe. Most crypto projects, they're chasing total decentralization, grabbing retail users. Hedera, it made a very deliberate choice early on. It said, okay, we'll trade some of that pure decentralization for enterprise-grade stability, performance you can count on.
Ah, okay.
It's a distributed ledger technology, a DLT, built specifically so companies like Google, IBM, Dell, they can actually build on it, trust it.
Right, so that framing is key. This isn't about DeFi apes and moonshots.
Not primarily, no.
It's about building verifiable, maybe even compliant infrastructure for big business.
Exactly.
Okay, so our mission today, unpack this hybrid. What problems was it built to solve that older blockchains couldn't? How does its unique tech, this Hashgraph thing, give it an edge? And crucially, what are the risks, especially around that corporate control aspect?
Yeah, to really get Hedera, you first need to understand why the big players, the global enterprises, they sort of looked at Bitcoin, early Ethereum, and thought, maybe not for us. Their needs are just fundamentally different from, someone trading coins. Think billions of data points logged daily.
Right, so what were the big blockers, the red flags for the lawyers, the IT departments?
Number one, straight up, scalability and speed. Just couldn't handle the volume. Traditional chains, especially the early ones, they just choke when lots of people try to use them at once. Network gets clogged.
Yeah, we've all seen that happen. Gas fees go crazy.
And big companies, they need systems that can handle maybe hundreds of thousands of transactions a second. Without fail, delays aren't just annoying, they stop business.
Okay, so speed's one. And you mentioned fees. That leads to the next problem, I guess.
Exactly. Problem two, cost and predictability. Or rather, the lack of predictability. Imagine you're running a huge supply chain app, track millions, maybe billions of items. If the fee per transaction jumps from, say, a fraction of a cent to $10 because the network's busy.
Your whole model collapses, especially for tiny, low-value logs.
Precisely. Corporations need budgets. They need predictable costs. Older chains often just couldn't offer that reliably.
Makes sense. And security. Blockchain's supposed to be secure, but you mentioned something. Probabilistic finalization. Why was that a deal breaker?
It's about certainty, absolute certainty. Many blockchains, particularly the older proof-of-work ones, have this probabilistic finality. It means when your transaction looks confirmed, there's still a tiny theoretical chance the chain could reorganize. A fork could happen, and poof, your transaction is undone.
Ooh, okay. I can see why that wouldn't fly.
Yeah, for a bank settling millions or a legal contract needing to be absolutely immutable, that tiny chance is unacceptable. They need mathematical guarantees, instant, irreversible finality.
Right, no takebacks. And the last one, this is huge now for any big company, sustainability, ESG.
Absolutely. And the massive energy drain of older systems like proof of work, it's toxic for corporate ESG goals now. Environmental, social, governance standards. If you're building for the future, it has to be green. Hedera was designed from the get-go with efficiency and even being carbon negative in mind.
Okay, so the shopping list was fast, cheap, guaranteed finality, and green. That sounds less like just improving blockchain and more like starting over with something new. How'd they actually build that?
Well, they realized the linear chain, that block after block structure, was kind of the bottleneck. So they went with a different structure, a directed acyclic graph, or DAG. But they added their own secret sauce, the Hashgraph consensus algorithm.
Like DAGs. Okay, I've heard of those.
Yeah.
But Hashgraph, the sources called it gossip about gossip. Can you break that down? Sounds intriguing.
It's a great analogy, actually, because that's pretty much what it does. Instead of nodes lining up to agree on the next block, imagine a huge cocktail party. Nodes just randomly chat with two other nodes. They tell them everything they know, transactions, sure, that's the gossip. But crucially, they also tell them who they talk to and when they talk to them. That's the gossip about gossip.
Ah, so it's not just the data, it's the history of how the data spread, like a map of the conversation flow.
Exactly. This constantly builds a complete timestamp history of all communication events across the network. That history is the hash graph. And because every node eventually gets this perfect map, they don't need to send out tons of extra messages asking, hey, did you see this? Do you agree?
Right.
They can just look at the map and mathematically calculate how every other node would vote on the order of transactions. It's called virtual voting.
Virtual voting. Okay, so less chatter, much faster agreement.
Exponentially faster. Cuts down communication overhead massively. That's how they get consensus in seconds.
That's the tech side. Clever. But the other really different piece is the governance, right? This isn't anonymous miners or stakers calling the shots. It's a governing council.
Yes, and this is absolutely critical for the corporate appeal. Hedera is explicitly governed by up to 39 big global organizations, rotating members, term limits. Think Google, IBM, Dell, LG, major universities, law firms, names you recognize.
So it looks less like a crypto free-for-all and more like a corporate board of directors.
That's the model, precisely.
Mm.
It provides that stability, that accountability, the legal structure that corporate legal and compliance teams understand and, frankly, trust. There are actual entities they can interact with.
Okay, knowing these huge companies are actually running the nodes,
Yeah.
that does lend a certain weight to it. Let's get into the performance claims. The security guarantee, you mentioned certainty before. How certain is it?
It achieves what's considered the highest possible standard for security in distributed systems. Asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance, ABFT.
ABFT, right. Bit of a mouthful. What does that mean for, like, a company using it?
It means the network is mathematically proven, formally verified by places like Carnegie Mellon to reach consensus correctly and reliably, even if up to a third of the nodes are malicious or just offline.
Even if they're actively trying to mess things up.
Yes. And because it's asynchronous, it's highly resistant to things like network delays or denial of service attacks trying to disrupt communication timing.
Okay, so that's the guaranteed finality checkbox ticked. Rock solid.
Absolutely. For that legal department, that contract signed at 2 p.m., it's final. Period. No chance of a rollback. ABFT ensures that.
Solid security plus the speed from Hashgraph. Let's hit those numbers again. Performance metrics that would make a CIO smile.
The speed is consistently 3 to 5 seconds for finality. Not probabilistic, but final.
3 to 5 seconds. Okay, that's fast.
And the cost model is designed for business predictability. Fees are fixed in US dollars, about 0.00001 per transaction. Tiny.
$0.001. Wow.
But you pay the fee in the HBAR token, so the USD cost is stable for the business, even if HBAR's market price fluctuates. They can budget accurately.
That's clever. Predictable costs.
Yeah.
And efficiency. You mentioned carbon negative. The numbers I saw were almost unbelievable.
They are pretty staggering. It uses about 0.0000003 kilowatt hours per transaction. That's,
wow.
Well, it's less energy than doing a single Google search.
Seriously.
Yeah. It makes it incredibly green, easily meets any corporate ESG requirement you can throw at it.
Okay, beyond the core engine, it's not just one thing, right? It's modular. What are the main tools developers use?
Right. They built it as a set of services. Helps avoid that noisy neighbor problem where one popular app slows down the whole chain. The big ones are the Hedera Consensus Service, HCS. Think of it for creating super secure, time-stamped logs, perfect for audit trails, supply chains, verifying data integrity.
So not necessarily moving value, but proving something happened at a specific time.
Exactly. And then there's the Hedera Token Service, HTS. This lets you create tokens, fungible ones, NFTs directly on the base layer, natively, which means they inherit all that speed and the super low fees automatically without needing complex and sometimes less efficient smart contracts just to issue a token.
And for developers coming from other chains, is it hard to build on?
They thought about that too. It offers EVM compatibility, supports Solidity's smart contracts.
So Ethereum developers can jump in relatively easily, use tools they already know.
Yep, they can build on Hedera and get the benefits of the Hashgraph speed and security underneath.
Okay, so stable, fast, cheap, secure. You'd think DeFi would be massive on Hedera. But the sources pointed out this interesting paradox.
Yeah, it's the key thing to grasp about where Hedera fits. The total value locked, the TVL in DeFi protocols on Hedera, it's relatively small. Around, what, $123 million last check? Pretty low compared to the giants.
Right, but then the transaction volume.
Astronomical. Consistently huge numbers. Over 70 billion transactions processed to date, sometimes hitting peaks of over 100 million in a single day.
70 billion. With a B. Okay, if that's not DeFi, where is all that activity coming from? What are people actually doing on Hedera?
It's the enterprise use cases. It confirms Hedera's main client base really is corporations. Its primary job right now seems to be acting as this global, verifiable database layer. Most of that volume isn't big money transfers. It's logging events, data points, ensuring integrity, tiny transactions, but billions of them.
Can you give some concrete examples? Who's generating these billions of transactions?
Sure. A big one is Avery Dennison. They have a platform called atmat.io for supply chain tracking. Physical goods, digital identities. They use the Hedera Consensus Service, HCS, to log billions of events, tracking items from factory to shelf, creating that verifiable trail.
Billions. Okay, that explains some volume. What about finance?
In institutional finance, you've got a Brennan, a major UK-based asset manager. They've tokenized some of their money market funds on Hedera, using it to make settlements more efficient, cut costs.
Interesting. So supply chain institutional finance. Well,
Yes. Enterprise workflows. ServiceNow, the big IT workflow company, they've integrated Hedera, using it to create trusted, auditable records for things like complex procurement processes involving multiple companies.
Okay, even consumer stuff.
Yep. LG Electronics launched their NFT marketplace, the LG Art Lab, on Hedera. They likely chose it for the speed and, importantly, those predictable low transaction costs for users buying NFTs.
So the HBAR token itself, it's the gas, the fuel for all these different corporate engines.
It serves two main purposes. One, pay for all network services, those tiny transaction fees, file storage, smart contract execution. It's the fuel. Two, secure the network. It uses proof of stake. HBAR holders can stake their tokens to help secure the network, and currently they can earn, I think it's up to 6.5% APY for doing that.
The corporate benefits seem really clear. Stability, cost, performance. But you mentioned earlier, in the wider crypto world, Hedera gets pushback. What's the main criticism?
It boils down to one word: centralization, or perceived centralization, anyway. This is the project's biggest hurdle in the eyes of crypto purists, and it's tied directly to its governance structure.
Because it's run by that council of big companies.
Exactly. The governing council, those 39 rotating giants, critics say that's centralized control, even if it's distributed among 39 entities. It's not a permissionless group of anonymous validators, and perhaps more importantly right now, all the mainnet nodes that actually process transactions are permissioned. They are run only by those council members. You or I can't just spin up a mainnet consensus node currently.
Ah, okay. So the very thing that gives corporations confidence knowing who's running the show is what makes decentralization advocates wary.
It's the fundamental trade-off Hedera made. Control brings stability and makes regulatory conversations potentially easier. But it goes against that core crypto ideal of fully permissionless, decentralized networks.
Makes sense. What about market risks? Specifically around the HBAR token itself. The total supply is huge, 50 billion.
Right. And not all 50 billion are circulating yet. There's a known schedule for releasing or unlocking large amounts of HBAR that were allocated to early investors, founders, ecosystem development grants, etc.
So, like stock options vesting in a public company.
Similar concept. Everyone knows when these large chunks of HBAR are set to hit the market. For instance, the sources mention something like 3.8 billion HBAR scheduled for release in Q1 2025.
Wow, that's a lot.
It creates predictable selling pressure. Investors know supply is increasing, which can potentially dampen price appreciation compared to tokens with fixed or deflationary supplies. It's something potential HBAR holders need to be aware of.
And competitively, how does it stack up against, say, Ethereum or Solana, especially in attracting developers and projects?
That's another challenge. While it's winning corporate partnerships, it definitely lags behind the big players in terms of the size and vibrancy of its DeFi ecosystem. Ethereum and Solana have massive network effects, huge developer communities built over years.
So Hedera needs to attract more of that grassroots developer energy.
Yeah, proving it can foster a thriving, permissionless innovation ecosystem alongside its corporate focus is key for long-term competition.
But they're working on the decentralization aspect, right? The sources mentioned a roadmap?
Yes, they're very aware of the criticism and have stated plans to address it. The roadmap includes a phased transition towards more decentralization. This involves eventually allowing permissionless consensus nodes, letting anyone run one, theoretically, and introducing public staking where anyone can stake HBAR to secure the network, not just the council. The first steps were slated for rollout starting in 2024.
You know, before we wrap up, this is a great point to quickly pause and remind our listeners of something.
That's right. If you're enjoying how we break down these complex projects into simple, usable pieces and want more deep dives just like this, make sure you subscribe to our channel, CryptoBox. We do all the complex, detailed research so you don't have to.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this all up. Hedera. It's really aiming to be that trusted, super efficient plumbing for the corporate world, using its unique Hashgraph tech for speed and security, and governed by this council of global giants.
I think the best way to see it is as a public-private hybrid, a unique kind of socio-technical system. Its biggest strength, that corporate governance, the stability, the certainty that attracts IBM and Google, is also, ironically, its biggest weakness in the eyes of the crypto community, focused on pure decentralization. Its success really seems to hinge on this tightrope walk. Can it successfully decentralize further, as planned, without losing the very stability and predictability its corporate clients depend on? That's the multi-billion-dollar question.
It really is a fascinating balancing act. And maybe here's the final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Hedera isn't shying away from regulation. It's actively engaging, even pitching itself to U.S. agencies as a potential pro-dollar asset. So the big question is, can a technology rooted in decentralization truly fulfill its potential if its primary path involves deeply integrating with and supporting the stability of the existing centralized financial and government structures? Can it serve two masters? That's the core tension, I think.
A fundamental question for the future of this whole space, really. Well, that's about all the time we have for this deep dive.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.